Hello, everyone, and welcome to our presentation. Jen Orsini, Jessica White, Ashley Hall, and me, Connie Clinkham, have prepared a presentation on the criminalization of homelessness and the policies and its effect on our homeless population in the nation. This is an important topic and is very timely and being argued and fought within the court system as it is right now. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
So, what is meant by the criminalization of homelessness? This term refers to laws and policies that make everyday life sustaining activities illegal when they are carried out in public spaces. These activities include sleeping or camping outdoors, sitting or resting in public, eating, and even asking for money or resources. Across the country, municipalities have adopted ordinances that impose criminal penalties for these actions. For example, cities may conduct sweeps of encampments, confiscating personal property such as tents, bedding, clothing, or medications. In some places, panhandling is prohibited, and groups that share food with unhoused individuals in public can face legal consequences. Other jurisdictions enforce what are called quality of life ordinances, which regulate public activity and hygiene in ways that directly affect people experiencing homelessness. The focus of these measures is not on the causes of homelessness, but on its visible presence in public spaces. By defining basic survival behaviors as violations, these policies treat homelessness itself as a matter of criminal conduct. This is what is meant by the criminalization of homelessness, a set of legal and policy approaches that frame human survival activities as offenses subject to fines, arrest, or the loss of personal property.
Camping bans have been highlighted in recent years as a direct result of a Supreme Court ruling. The ruling was made on June 28, 2024, and the case was the City of Grants Pass, Oregon versus Johnson. The background of this case is that in 2018, the Oregon Law Center, an organization that supports low-income Oregonians, filed the class action lawsuit on behalf of Deborah Blake. Blake was homeless and was representing the homeless population of Grants Pass that had received civil fines for violating anti-camping, anti-sleeping, and parking city ordinances. As the case moved through the court system, Deborah Blake died, and the homeless population of Grants Pass was then represented by Gloria Johnson and John Logan, who had also been fined due to these ordinances. Hence why the case is the City of Grants Pass versus Johnson. The camping bans are a thinly veiled attempt at attacking the homeless population. In fact, during a brainstorming session about anti-camping ordinances in 2013, the Grants Pass City Council president stated that the goal was to make it uncomfortable enough for homeless individuals in our city so that they will want to move on down the road. The attorneys for the Oregon Law Center argued that the fines were a violation of the Eighth Amendment excessive fines clause, because homeless people that are unable to afford shelter are unlikely to be able to afford fines imposed for the unavoidable life-sustaining act of sleeping. The Supreme Court ruled that the camping bans were not a violation of the Eighth Amendment. This set precedents for other jurisdictions to enact such bans and, in fact, criminalizing homelessness. In the argument for their decision, they stated that the city imposes only limited fines for first-time offenders and only a maximum time for jail and who later violate the order after the fines. And this does not qualify as cruel because they are not designed to cause terror, pain, or disgrace.
Camping bans have been at the center of a recent controversy surrounding the criminalization of homelessness. One of the arguments in favor of banning camping in public places is that allowing these homeless encampments to exist is not a solution to the homelessness crisis in America. Encampments not only affect the homeless population, but it also impacts the community surrounding them. In Phoenix, Arizona, there was a large encampment with over 1,000 homeless people called the Zone, and during voting, over 66% of voters said that these encampments in the streets and in public areas made them feel unsafe. Not only do the communities feel unsafe, but this also leads to living in these encampments also leads to worse outcomes for the homeless individuals who are staying there. So, for example, one of the issues that is arising in these encampments is really preventable diseases are being spread rapidly. So there's been outbreaks of hepatitis A, tuberculosis, and Shigella in various states over the past couple of years in these encampments. This could have impacted and could impact the communities at large if these diseases were to spread outside of the encampments. One of the issue with many of the people who are living in these homeless encampments is that they have severe mental health and substance use disorders. So schizophrenia, major depression, long-term substance use. And the reality is not engaging in treatment for them also results in poor outcomes for them. So when you don't engage in treatment or take your medication, you're at a higher risk of incapacitation, you're at a higher risk of overdose, you're at a higher risk of early death. And so this idea that we're doing that by giving these individuals self-determination, that we're promoting their rights, the argument can be made that we're also harming them. Civil commitments have been brought up as a possible solution. President Trump did sign an executive order making it easier to file these civil commitments in order to force people into treatment. The biggest issue that opponents have with that is that it's, taking away the self-determination. I compare this with substance use. Even though we don't force people to get treatment, but there's still laws that have to be followed in reference to the possession of drugs and alcohol in this country. And so when people get caught with narcotics or selling narcotics or using narcotics, they go to jail for that. And so I look at the camping bans that can be seen in a similar manner, of the same way that substance users are given choices, whether that be, you can go to treatment or you can go to jail. Those aren't great choices, but they are a choice, and you can make that choice for yourself. I think that you could look at camping bans in the same manner, as either you go into treatment or you go into the housing shelter, or you engage in mental health treatment, or you're incarcerated or fined. I mean, the reality is that it does provide a choice, and the proponents of this kind of thinking really say that it falls back on personal responsibility, and that individuals should be responsible for themselves, and that an individual's right to their own self-determination should not impact the safety and well-being of others in the community. And I think that that's where the camping bans kind of cross over, because like I said, with the people reporting feeling unsafe or the possible spread of disease, that's where it can start to impact other people if the individual doesn't make the decision that promotes well-being for themselves. So this is one argument in favor of the camping bans.
I am going to explore a few of the other arguments often presented in favor of camping bans and the criminalization of homelessness. While these policies are controversial, supporters frame them as necessary responses to public safety concerns, environmental impacts, and economic pressures. By examining these rationales, we can better understand the motivations behind such measures and critically evaluate their effectiveness. One of the most common arguments is that unsanctioned encampments pose risks to community safety. Encampments can attract crime and create hazards near schools, parks, and other public spaces. Encampments often lack basic infrastructure, leading to unsafe conditions for both residents and the broader community. Proponents argue that bans are a way to restore order and reduce risks in public spaces. Importantly, the Cicero Institute's 2025 National Crime Poll found that 75% of Americans believe violent crime is increasing or staying the same, and strong majorities support accountability-driven policies in areas like homelessness and public safety. This data underscores why many policymakers frame camping bans as part of a broader effort to restore order in communities where residents feel crime is worsening. Another rationale centers on environmental health and how homelessness and gentrification intersect to produce pollution, waste accumulation, and damage to public lands. Encampments without sanitation services can lead to litter, water contamination, and long-term ecological harm. Supporters of bans argue that restricting camping is necessary to protect natural resources and maintain clean, usable public spaces. Finally, economic vitality and city image play a significant role. Visible encampments are often described as deterrents to customers and tourists. An executive order ordered by President Trump in 2025 framed camping bans as part of a broader effort to end crime and disorder on America's streets, linking urban cleanliness and safety to economic growth. Local governments argue that maintaining attractive public spaces is essential for sustaining business districts and tourism revenue. The Cicero Institute's poll reinforces this perspective. These arguments are grounded in concerns about community order, ecological health, and the financial well-being of cities. The Cicero Institute's 2025 National Crime Poll shows that Americans overwhelmingly favor policies that emphasize accountability, order, and safety.
Camping bans don't solve homelessness. Instead, they criminalize basic survival activities, such as sleeping or resting in public spaces. Rather than addressing the root causes of homelessness, these policies are punishing people simply for just not having a home. When individuals are cited or arrested for violating camping bans, they often are ending up with criminal records. This is making it even harder for them to find employment, secure housing, or access to vital social services. This always traps them in a cycle that's very difficult to break. Major organizations, including the United Nations, have condemned the criminalization of homelessness as a violation of fundamental human rights. According to the UN Human Rights Council, these policies are not just ineffective but unjust. Instead of offering real solutions, camping bans usually just push people from one area to another. This constant displacement makes it much more difficult for outreach workers and service providers to find and help people in need. Moreover, camping bans tend to disproportionately affect marginalized communities, such as people of color, LGBTQ individuals, and people with disabilities. This worsens existing inequalities in our society. Ultimately, rather than protecting public safety, camping bans are increasing trauma, perpetrating to the stigma, and adding barriers to stability for people experiencing homelessness. Meaningful change comes from addressing the root causes of homelessness and investing in support, not punishing those who are already vulnerable.
Criminalizing homelessness or enforcing camping bans often looks like law enforcement clearing out homeless encampments. They do this as they enforce panhandling laws, camping bans, sleeping bans, loitering and vagrancy laws, vehicle residency laws, as well as food sharing laws. Essentially, these laws prohibit life-sustaining activities in public for people who literally have nowhere to go. Clearing out homeless encampments is expensive. For example, cities have reported spending about $1 million over a 3-year period on property removal alone. This is property that has been removed from an encampment and discarded or destroyed, property that is required for those individuals to live. Property removal is not the only cost associated with clearing encampments. There are additional costs for policing and incarceration. It has been estimated in a county in Florida that it costs about $31,065 a year to criminalize one person suffering from homelessness. Homeless individuals get trapped in the homeless jail cycle. A cycle that simply rotates an unhoused individual in jail and then out on the street with nowhere to go, and then back to jail for trying to live. The city of Denver estimates it costs $4,000 every 90 days for an individual caught in the homeless jail cycle. Clearing encampments doesn't decrease the homeless population. In fact, studies show that although removing the encampment reduces the visibility of the homeless population, the numbers of people suffering from homelessness quickly rebound after law enforcement moves on, or the numbers actually increase. Supporting housing is cheaper and therefore more sustainable than criminalizing homelessness. The same study that estimates it costs $31,065 per year to criminalize a single person suffering from homelessness estimates that it would cost only $10,051 per year to provide supportive housing to that same individual. Therefore, criminalizing homelessness through the many ordinances and laws that have been enacted, the municipalities could take that money and spend it that they spend on enforcement, property removal, incarceration, and they can provide sustainable supportive housing, and they would end up saving money as well as helping the homeless population. This is an argument against camping bans because they're ineffective and costly.
Housing First has been shown to be the most effective approach to ending homelessness. This is basically an approach where participants are not forced into treatment or into any kind of services, and instead they're provided with housing, and then they are encouraged to attend services, but it's not a requirement, it's not a mandatory thing. And so this gives people self-determination. It emphasizes their choice. There's two common models that are really used pretty frequently, and that's permanent supportive housing and rapid rehousing. But the idea in both of them is that you have to have stability in housing before you can even begin to work on the bigger issues like sobriety, mental health, all of those kind of things. And this really kind of falls back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and that if your basic needs are not met, if you don't know where you're going to sleep tonight, if you don't know if you have food, if you're not sure that your most inherent basic needs are met, you cannot worry about the more higher level challenges that you may be facing, such as struggling with substance use or your mental health. How Housing First, there was a systematic review done recently, and it was found that Housing First decreases homelessness by 88% compared to Treatment First programs, and that housing and stability improved by 41% compared to Treatment First programs. In looking at the data and the evidence, it just shows that, like a recent Housing First project in Denver, there was a 34% reduction in police contact and a 40% reduction in arrest. This model really works for any populations that are struggling with homelessness. So you can use it with veterans, you can use it with people with mental health diagnosis, you can use it with people with substance use.
This entire debate really shows just how complicated homelessness truly is and how many people care about it on both sides. Some people think camping bans are needed to keep public spaces safe, but research and human rights groups have shown that these bans don't actually solve homelessness and can even make life harder for people without homes. We talked about the recent Supreme Court case, City of Grants Press versus Johnson, which brought national attention to this issue. The decision is shaping what cities are allowed to do, especially when it comes to whether people can be punished for sleeping outside when they have nowhere else to go. Instead of focusing on punishment, we also looked at housing first programs. These give people a stable, affordable place to live without requiring them to go through treatment or meet other conditions first. Approaches like permanent supportive housing and rapid rehousing have been shown to help people stay housed, improve their health, and reduce the need for emergency services. The key is offering support and choices, not forcing people into anything. Research also shows that clearing out encampments costs a lot and really doesn't fix the problem in the long run. If we want to make real progress, we need to invest in what works. That's affordable housing, mental health care, and supportive services, not just more rules and enforcement. We really just want to help people and create lasting change. We need to stop criminalizing homelessness and start focusing on solutions that actually give people the support and stability they need.